The American Revolution has ended. Having avenged their defeat in the 7 Years' War, the soldiers of France return home to their nation and their king. They bring with them more than just apple pie and a wounded British pride. From the budding American nation, they will bring with them a word. A word that will topple kings and take countless heads. A word that will make the mighty empires of Europe, old and new, tremble. A word that will threaten to rewrite the maps of the world. Democracy. Between kings of Bourbon and empire of Napoleon, it would bring about one of the most tumultuous times in the history of France. It is the French Revolution, and this is their story. My name is Justin Woods, and I'm joined today by my fellow co-hosts Colum Coleman and Aaron Gilpin. And today, Viva la Revolution! We are going to France. We are going to the nation that truly make the rich and powerful quiver. Let them eat cake.
That is actually from this revolution. Oh God.
And so they will.
Yeah, we begin here on a wonderful note. Welcome everyone. It's 1789. France is starving. And things are about
because of the price of eggs.
Yes, they were very concerned about the price of eggs at that time, Aaron. And in doing so, they truly will have their just desserts.
Yep. Now, the reason why France is starving is because France is broke.
I really like how when we pick out these episodes, you know.
Now, France is broke because their head of state, King Louis XVI, has refused to reduce royal spending in any way. He has invested a massive amount of capital into the American Revolution and seeing to it that the United States succeeds in breaking away from the British Empire, while at the same time continuing to live at a level of relative luxury that would put Jeff Bezos to shame.
I mean, you would also be wanting to live in the lap of luxury if you had the Palace of Versailles as your stomping grounds.
I would not want to live there. They shat in the fucking corners.
Okay.
Did not have plumbing. Fun fact.
You probably did when you were a child too, Aaron.
Listen.
No. I was civilized.
Versailles
not
hygiene.
French.
Versailles hygiene aside.
We need that on a shirt. That has to go down.
The French
right next to the Neolithic sex club merch hats.
I had hoped that
you thought that was gonna die.
Of course,
you thought that was gonna die.
The French budget is out of control. The coffers are empty. And during the 1780s, almost every harvest fails.
Oh.
Which means that there's no food to feed people. There's no money coming in from the food and selling it to replenish the coffers. And there's nothing in the coffers to buy and import more food to feed the starving people.
What's kind of interesting about this, and I'm sure we'll touch on it later on as well, but part of the reason why the French were going broke and why their coffers were so empty, beyond just the lavish spending, was they were assisting a young fledgling nation halfway across the world in both military equipment, gear, and in the same point of doing so, the lovely Brits to the north began raiding their colonies.
France saw no economic gain from helping the United States. It was a point of pride. It was proving to the British that despite the 7 Years' War, they were still a formidable rival. And it was proving to the world that the British could lose something.
Listen, this is just typical French behavior. Like, they are Britain's #1 haters when it comes to anything. Like, and the reason they're like this is because they have to compete with the Scottish, the Welsh, and the Irish for #1 hater. and that was their title for 100 years,
Yeah.
I mean,
and they really did not like giving that up.
what's the old adage? The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yes, a adage by a prince who was supposedly murdered by his own advisors.
Hey, we don't talk about that. I know you like to discuss that text, but no.
Yeah. But yeah.
Who
And
doesn't?
France doesn't get an economic return on America once the war is won
You're kind of in
because
debt. We don't got
because
money.
the United States is one, in debt, and two, doesn't really know what sort of nation it is. So a lot of the early years here into like the Jefferson era is just America trying to figure out what the law of America is. And
Yeah, because
not a lot of focus is put on exporting things to France so that France can benefit from mutual trade agreements.
I mean, fun fact, after the American Revolution, the whole boundaries and borders of North America were just kind of fuzzy. People didn't really know where America ended, France started, where Britain was.
Yeah. There were a lot of problems there on the American side. But enough about
it
that.
was a
So
real free for all.
yeah. So all this sort of
I can see the appeal of living out that way, though.
yeah.
But the Americans were trying to sort that out and weren't able to export money or repatriations. However, they exported something even more valuable.
Yeah.
They brought
French
back one of
soldiers
the.
came
Well,
back with American ideals.
yeah, I mean, yes, that is the very true aspect, especially a certain commander, Lafayette, who came to America as a young 16-year-old, was given command of his own regiment, and then eventually became a general.
Yes. Now, enough Americanism. This is about the French. Lafayette does not feature in this story. I'm sorry to say, he is not a bloodthirsty monster. Fun fact for what's coming up later.
Yes, but the only other person who has started more revolutions than him was Bolivar.
Oh yeah, it's true.
I was going to
Real
say the man who
contender.
founded disco, but that sounds more accurate.
No, Bolivar and Lafayette, they would have a good conversation over a cup of coffee, I'll tell you that much. So what did you do? You cut their heads off? Fascinating.
Yeah. And anyway, the harvests are poor in France. All these politicking with Britain and America is leading to nowhere. Everything's come to a head and comes to a major cliff face. In 1789, the poor are rioting. Specifically the urban poor. So you can't call them peasants. You have to call them the poor. It's a wonderful bit of nomenclature there.
Yeah,
And,
I mean the class distinction very important, I'm sure.
Yep. Oh, it is. And the major reason was French tax codes actually were terrible. See, the majority of French income is derived from the poorest members. The less money you have, the more you owe to the government.
Gee.
Because the rich people have exemptions for everything. And in order to make up for all those rich people having exemptions to the existing tax, we had to impose new taxes. And of course, the people who can't get out of that are the poor.
Yeah.
And so there's no relief for the starvation, and they're being taxed to death. Cue violence.
Yeah, like what did they expect?
Yeah. Well, they did expect this. They do see it coming. Specifically, one person. This is going to enter our first character onto the stage, Charles Alexandre de Colum, a man who I'm certain did not smell at all. Now, Cologne is what's called the Controller General, which basically means it's his job to figure out what the hell's going on, tell it to the king, and then give the king ideas to how to make the problem go away.
Have you thought about feeding the poor, sire? Get
What
this
the
man
fuck
away
is the
from
point?
me. Yeah.
What's the point of the king at that point? If he needs ideas.
I mean, it's never a bad idea to have counsel, but like
I mean,
having a
yeah,
privy
but
council,
like,
but
just having a one dude.
I mean, we
The-
know in history the closest person to the king is.
yeah, the controller general is a very important. It's very important. It's basically when the king makes a decree, it's this guy's job to see to it that that's written out and like actually implement it. And because of that, he knows when things go wrong and gets to go to the king and say, the poor are rioting again, sir. This is the Smithers of France. This is
Oh,
Francis Smithers.
oh,
Excellent.
And and Smithers here in
actually, no, I'm
17
pretty sure the Simpsons have done a Revolution episode now that I think about it.
they've done several
Probably.
probably. But Smithers here, our friend Cologne, in 1786, 3 years before the Revolution, suggests that a way to stop some of the problems would be to change the tax code and just throw out the entire book and impose a single flat tax on
Oh
everyone
no.
with
Oh
no
no.
exemptions for anything. This gets him fired.
Oh God. Understandably so.
And it gets him fired because the French nobility, the aristocracy, go to King Louis and say, if you sign that document, we will overthrow you. We are the force of power in France, and we will start a revolution. And Louis backs down because, yeah, these people don't know what's coming. Irony is at 100 here.
Clearly.
So, in order to resolve this problem of not being able to do anything and not really having any means of doing this by himself, Louis decides that for this change, the only way he's going to get anything through that isn't just going to set off a revolution is to summon the Estates General. Now, this was an archaic, vastly outdated form of government. He summons them in 1786 to meet with him in 1789.
Mhm.
The last time the Estates General had convened was 1614.
Why?
Because this is an emergency body that is brought forward only when there is a problem that the king and his appointed officials and courts cannot solve themselves. If Louis does nothing, the poor will riot. If he does anything, the nobility will go into open rebellion. So he summons the Estates General.
Which at this point hadn't been summoned in 175 years.
Yeah.
Who was the last one to summon it? Was it Louis the 14th?
No, this would predate Louis the 14th. This would have been 13th. This would have been the 13th.
Oh, okay.
Which the only reason it was around, I believe, was because Louis was 9 when he took the throne. And so governing body, everyone gather up.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
government, is like, we have a 9-year-old boy as king. What the hell do we do?
Yeah, because this was a bit of that was kind of like an inevitability kind of thing when you start having heretical monarchies.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's the Estates General, it's vastly outdated because none of its policies, its codes, its embodiment has been updated in 175 years. This is bad. And the way it works
Good.
is you get representatives from all segments of French society in equal measure. The clergy take up 1/3 of the seats. The aristocracy take up 1/3 of the seats. The merchant middle class, aka everyone not of noble birth, get 1/3 of the seats. This is a major problem. France's population has grown massively in the last 200 years to the point where 2% of the French population controls 66% of the seats in this assembly.
That sounds even and fair.
Oh, not very proportional.
Yep. So the middle class just starts refusing to cooperate unless this estate is formed with some major reformations already in it.
That's fair. That is understandable.
They demand popular vote rather than the existing, tripartite representation. And most of their representatives were soldiers from the American Revolution, 1776 to 1783. They'd all they literally got back off the boat from America, and their king was calling them to this really outdated form of a general assembly democracy. And they said, "Oh, we have some ideas for this."
Oh no. I
Because
mean,
they brought the American Revolution home.
it's already bad enough that he felt the need to bring them in. But yeah, they brought you bring in a bunch of people that were just in America fighting for their freedom against a tyrannical king, and you have a king who's not doing the job, not cutting his weight, and you go, "You know what the Americans had right? They like the idea of liberty, and we really dig this popular enfranchisement. Their people have a right to vote. They have a right to be."
Yep. The best part, too, is that America was rebelling against a constitutional monarchy, and France was an absolute monarchy, meaning that the oppressive, tyrannical regime America was rebelling against was incredibly freedom-giving and filled with liberties by comparison to the rights and privileges these French soldiers had at home in France.
I think I'm understanding why they were so incentivized.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So the day of the assembly comes on May 5th of 1789, and the debate on the popular vote issue just turns into violence.
Naturally.
It becomes open hostility, and the Estates General present King Louis with 25,000 complaints.
Holy.
By the time this starts. Now, part of the job of the Estates General is for people from all walks of life from every part of France to present King Louis with, "This is what's specifically wrong in my area." So not all of these are related to the fight that's breaking out, but most of them are. So many are. And the talks stall. So the middle class decide in June 17th to meet in the tennis courts for a lovely scrimmage. And
right, I forgot the French really love tennis.
I just love that the
Like
revolution
their
kicked
love
off.
of tennis, their revolution not only kicked off via tennis courts, it also caused Henry the Fifth to come to the 100 Years' War, when I believe it was the Dauphin who sent Henry the Fifth, according to the Shakespeare play, as far as I know, though, as an insult, saying, "I've got you by the balls."
Oh, the start of that saying.
Yep. But yep. They meet in a tennis court. And, they decide that they're going to do some revolutionary activity. So they all take what's called the tennis court oath, where they solemnly swear to Serena Williams.
Wouldn't that have been something?
Yeah. And what they do here is they name themselves the National Assembly. And they all swear that they will not leave Versailles until constitutional reform is implemented. And what this means is not only do they want the Estates General reformed, they want King Louis operating as a constitutional monarch like in England.
Oh, that's settling. That was them being nice.
Yep. And it turns out this is an extremely popular statement because both the priesthood and the aristocrats see a chance at power. And within a week, they've got almost everybody in their camp.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yep. And this effort to strip King Louis of his powers is very universally binding. And by June 27th, Louis's got no choice but to acknowledge the National Assembly as the legitimate legislative body of the Kingdom of France. He can't get rid of them.
He's stuck with them now.
His only hope is that they will write something on which he will have input and then go away.
Again, they're lucky they get to keep all the nice things.
Yep. Unfortunately, no one outside of Versailles knows this. And in the capital of Paris, panic breaks out as a wild rumor that the military is coming in to assassinate the National Assembly and enact a military coup and form a military dictatorship, either for the king or for itself, causes the Parisians to start attacking soldiers.
I mean, they weren't without due justice, because didn't King Louis start calling in the troops to reassert himself?
Yep, King Louis had begun to gather troops. All anyone knew was that suddenly 30,000 troops had entered downtown Paris.
They literally just had no idea what was going on. They didn't know who.
I would also think a military coup was happening if 30,000 soldiers just wandered onto the streets.
Yeah,
right. Like if there was anything like that to happen to like today, like everybody would be panicking. Nobody would know what would be going on. Even with how fast communication is now, we have so much
too.
Yeah, we have so much misinformation that we would just have no idea. The panic level would just be the same.
Yeah. And so like the Parisians are panicking because they don't realize that the situation has been resolved without violence in Versailles. They still think there's going to be a fight.
And they were all stirred up for it.
Wait, so this is just a powder keg that just popped.
Yeah. And so they decide they're going to draw first blood. And they charge what's known as the Bastille, which was this massive armory in Paris that doubled as a prison for political prisoners.
Nothing like keeping your weapons and your top prisoners in the same building.
Yeah. So wait a minute. This is the holiday that they celebrate in France?
Yes, storming of the Bastille, yeah.
Yep, July 14th, 1789. They stormed the fortress, they released the prisoners, and the revolutionaries have now armed themselves with equipment on par with that of the 30,000 soldiers in Paris. None of whom want to shoot on account of everyone being French.
But sir, they are not British. What am I to do?
Yeah, but the Parisian opened fire.
Yep. News of the taking of the Bastille spreads through the countryside faster than news of the peace at Versailles, sparking what's known as the Great Fear, in which every provincial town suddenly appears to believe that it is going to be ground zero for the massive military aristocratic retaliation and a crackdown against us. So they do what the Parisians do and start trying to draw first blood.
I think you just give the French an opportunity to go hog wild, they will.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
basically
again, we get a lot of shit, but again, look at what they keep doing.
I feel like the Americans were like, all right.
If they're not busy fighting the rest of Europe, they're fighting themselves.
Yeah, but the Americans were like, all right, King George, you get 2 more chances before I'm going to start getting angry. Oh, you raised the taxes. All right, you get 1 more chance before I start getting your housing
Yeah, but that's
troops.
because it was American aristocrats rebelling.
Where's the French? They're like, there's peace, but there's soldiers in my backyard. We must revolt.
Yeah.
If there's peace, why are there soldiers in my yard? If it's like, but if there's climate change, why is there snow in my yard?
Yes.
It's pretty bad. Anyway, they go
Because
around.
soldiers come home. Like,
Yeah. They go around. They just start setting fire to any residence that is either associated with the local governing aristocrat or the tax collector. They primarily go around hunting the equivalent of the French IRS.
understandable. Actually,
And
kind
you
of.
can see why this becomes very popular movement. As panicky
I mean,
as
like, I wouldn't compare like French tax collectors entirely to the IRS because let's face it, they're not taxing the rich. Oh, I guess the IRS is taxing the rich.
which group does that statement apply to, Justin? Which group do you think he meant by that?
All of them.
They're not taxing the rich, so they're not the IRS.
I mean, the IRS doesn't tax the rich either. Let's be honest.
Oh, they
here.
did for a little bit. They did for a little bit.
Yeah, they did until Reagan got into office.
Yeah.
Now, this great fear causes all the French aristocrats to leave France. And this is where a lot of sources stop talking about the French Revolution in terms of French people and start talking about it in terms of the burden upon Britain for having to deal with the uncertainty of its neighbor.
Oh,
Because
right.
God forbid we talk about the French in the French Revolution. I just want to point this out there that this was a major sticking point in research here, was keeping the focus on France.
Yeah, no, like for whatever reason, through like the Edwardian, through like all the way through like halfway through the Victorian period, this is all the British like aristocracy cared about because it was their version of a soap opera.
Yep.
They had such a morbid fascination with it.
Yep.
Like, oh, but it's so poetic. They're all dying for such great ideals. And then having zero context to what's actually going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And to add fear to the to the world around them, this great fear, as it is called, caused one major reform. And that was France formally abolishing feudalism. The idea that you are literally a wage slave and owe your entire existence to whoever owns the land you were born on.
Yeah, the other just literally just sounds like slavery.
Yeah. Yeah, it's indentured servitude where farmers are tied to the land they work.
It was serfdom, right? Yeah, just serfdom.
Yeah, it's serfdom. This is feudalism. This is serfdom. This whole concept of everyone being indebted from birth till death to whoever was above them on the social hierarchy. That dies. And, thank God. Now, meanwhile, as the countryside's burning, the National Assembly puts together its first press release. and it's one of the most significant human rights documents in France. It's the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen.
Oh,
Ooh.
great text.
Makes a bunch of promises. It wants a society that's built on 4 key pillars: equal opportunity, freedom of speech, popular sovereignty, and representative government.
Those all sound very familiar.
It's extremely like what the Americans had.
It's like you tell someone that they can copy your homework, but just change some of the answers.
Yep. And part of this is exposure to the American Revolution. And part of this is because when debating what should be done, the prevailing philosophy was the same Enlightenment philosophers that inspired the American Revolution. So they're drawing from both the same original texts, and they have all the stuff the Americans are doing as a point of reference.
Is this around the time Voltaire is also hanging out?
Yes, it's pretty spot on.
That's what I thought.
Voltaire, Robespierre.
Robespierre, Voltaire.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, Voltaire had just died like 10 years before.
Oh, okay.
So his works were still very much on the public conscience.
Yeah. This is Voltaire, this is Locke, this is Rousseau. This is humanity. Power is derived from the willingness of the people who are governed by said power.
Whatever that quote is from Monty Python, Holy Grail.
Yeah.
With King of the Britain's skit.
I did not vote for you.
Executive power is derived from passes.
Yes. Yeah. Power is effectively a trick. It resides wherever the people decide it resides. Without people agreeing that power exists here, power cannot be here. This is not going to work out for the French people today. Because this wonderful new document and this lovely French Revolution is not going to deliver on its promises. Because with it, they promised to draft a constitution.
Ooh.
And it turns out that people who are in on this revolution for legitimate change don't get along with the people who are in on this revolution for personal gain and to strip powers away from everyone else.
Yeah, I wonder why.
It's almost like the power that's the corrupting aspect here.
Not to mention,
usually greed.
Yep.
Really greed.
Not to mention, because everyone is going around setting things on fire, the crops continue to be poor. Things continue to go badly for French economics. There's still no money coming into the government.
It's really interesting how quickly the French resorted to arson.
Yep.
You almost have to respect it. There's a certain admiration to the fire.
I do love a good fire. I was a Boy Scout. I did love the campfires.
Sitting around the campfire. Yeah, so the French really did like that, and then they would go on to develop an even more effective way of, let's say, turning the heads.
Yeah, they
let the good times roll.
Yep, that's not quite.
No, spoilers.
We have a fun there. In the meantime, the Assembly, when it's making this Constitution, get caught on 3 sticking points, and they're kind of big ones for France. The first is, how do you run an election? Who is responsible for this? Is there an oversight committee? How do we keep the oversight committee from just being bribed? Who even gets to vote? What is a vote?
There's a man with a gun at their head at all times that if they take any bribe, and it's just someone on a shift at each time.
Yep. Problem number 2. About a third of the people in this assembly are priests. So
Oh,
Priests
Catholic Church. Yep.
clearly are political, but are they political for what?
Oh,
Does the
oh,
church answer to the French government? Does the French government answer to the church? Should we be
right,
having priests involved in any of this?
There should be a
right.
certain
Being like,
separation of church and state.
there
Yeah.
was. This is also the fact that a lot of Protestants also started forming groups in France. So France wasn't fully Catholic at the time either, and the Enlightenment also didn't do them any favor.
Yep. Because under the old system, under the kings of Bourbon, you had a Catholic king and you had a Catholic pope in Rome. And the Catholic king was responsible for all his Catholic bishops. And the bishops went and told on things to the pope in Rome. And there was this kind of like balance of power of, we're not quite equals, but we're partners. And now that that's out the window with this new constitution and electing people, you don't elect priests. What do we do with them?
They just hang out at their churches, I guess,
Oh
doing
no, no,
church
no.
things.
These priests have held political power for centuries. They're not getting squeezed out now. So
Of course not.
that's fight number 2. And fight number 3 is we have a constitution, we have a democracy. What do we need a king for again? What do we do with the king? No one for 1,000 years has made laws in France without a king. Can you even make a law without a king? How much
Well,
power
the
does the
Americans
king
are
have?
doing it.
They don't know yet. They're trying to figure it out. What's too far? What's
Yeah,
not?
once the legitimacy has been questioned, it's amazing how the social bind
Yeah.
that, or the social norms that tie us together to keep us, at least complicit,
Yeah.
start to break down.
Yeah. Now, Louis here, Louis 16, he makes this easy for the National Assembly, because in 1791, hearing about how some of the people are increasingly hostile to everything he does,
Yeah, fair.
he decides to flee the country.
That's right.
And,
That's right.
I mean,
and
his
this makes
controller general,
deciding. Oh, you go ahead.
his controller general also fled the country.
Yeah.
He fled
Yeah, they
it
got
in
caught though, right?
a
Yeah.
cup and not allowed to return to France until he was granted some level of clemency by Napoleon and then died a month later.
You know, weren't because they were making a really heinous, not just for the fact that they were fleeing the city, like they were fleeing to Austria, who
Yeah.
France for like the last 400 years. Like, so, or not, well, not 400 years, but there are two things the French hate more than anything in this time period. It's the British and Austria,
Yeah.
specifically the Habsburgs.
Yeah.
And it was like, ooh,
Yeah, the Bourbon and Habsburg dynasty had an ancient and deadly rivalry over control of Europe. And the reason that Louis tries to flee to this hated and militarily powerful enemy is because his wife's Prussian. And she's going to get blamed for everything.
oh, yes, she will. Because not only is she Prussian, that means she has ties to the Holy Roman Empire. Because if there's one thing that has really stopped France from expanding any sort of influence into Central Europe, it's been the Holy Roman Empire. And the Austrians have basically been picking fights with with the fucking French, like specifically the House of was it Bourbon?
Yeah, Bourbon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
House of Bourbon specifically.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
like you can't fight back, because if you do, You're dragging the rest of the entire Holy Roman Empire in.
Yeah. Oh, small
Because they all
correction.
hate the fucking French
Yep.
to
Small
some
correction.
degree.
Yeah. Marie Antoinette, the king's wife here, she was an Austrian princess, which is somehow worse.
Mm.
Because
Yeah,
Austria
because she was supposed to be this was
is
like
the
this was
Austria
a
is the
political marriage.
original Habsburg domain.
It's interesting too because the two lineages were perpetually at war with each other, both when the Habsburgs were in control of the Spanish throne as well. We don't tend to talk about that line nearly as often, but it's interesting because at that time too, there were a lot of political marriages for this exact reason. So you can usually assume pretty easily that each country is going to have a web of familial and marital ties that will make them basically allies.
And having a giant sign that says the King of France, our oldest rival, owes us would be a big deal for Austria.
Yeah. If they
And
were at any point reinstalled, France would
yeah,
be immediately indebted.
They'd be their
yeah,
bitch.
yeah. And so this massively tarnishes the king's reputation and makes deciding certain things about the new government very easy.
Yeah.
Because the original debate is on the pretense that the king was in favor of the revolution. The king saw there was problems in the land beyond what he himself could fix. He
How
summoned the
humble.
estates. He summons the estates general, which is then reformed into the National Assembly and given this broad sweeping power to rewrite the entire government. He summoned this council, therefore anything it does was sanctioned by him.
You know what
This
I kind of want
illusion,
right now?
yeah,
I
this
kind of
illusion,
want an office style of the French Revolution. This would be so great.
yeah,
The
but
last two seasons is just Napoleon.
yeah, yeah. The narrative goes from this sort of peaceful transition of power to monarchy versus democracy. It's you're either in favor of the king, in which case you want to destroy the revolution, or you're in favor of the revolution, in which case you must hate the king. Also, the French kind of judge Louis very hard for getting caught during this, and they call him a coward because the absolute God, was it godly sanctioned man
God
that he is
King.
supposed to be, should have stood his ground and smote the assembly with the wrath of heaven if he was truly against it. He should have been a man, and he wasn't.
I mean, to be fair, I think he was actually like 16, 17, something like that. Which by that time standards, like they would have considered a man, but also like I get why he ran, like he fled. It's understandable, but like also he's fleeing to Austria.
Actually, at this time,
You could have fled to Denmark.
he would have been 36.
Oh, he ascended the throne at 16, didn't he?
Yeah, he would have been in his 30s because he's
Okay, yeah, never mind then.
he's
Fuck him.
Yeah,
yeah.
He
he
could
would
have
have
went to Denmark.
been
This is a 36-year-old man ordained by heaven
at
to
this point. Oh
rule
yeah.
absolutely, and he's changing his clothes and trying to sneak out of the city.
I like to imagine that at this time he changed his clothes, but did not remove the powdered white wig.
I like the crown too, or something like.
I believe he got caught because when he tried to bribe a gate guard, and I don't know this for certain, his face was on the money he was handing the man.
I get told that a lot.
This is like George Washington handing you a $1 bill and saying you didn't see me.
Also, he really hated that idea, fun fact. He really did not want to be put on currency.
Washington
His
hated most of
kings.
the ideas of what America became. Washington is the OG. He didn't want a bipartisan government. He didn't want a face. He didn't want a king. It's half the reason Adam spent his first term as vice
He would have
president.
shot somebody for putting "In God We Trust" on the fucking
Oh
currency
yeah, he'd be rolling.
because he was a deist.
Yep.
History is
And
so quickly forgotten.
Yep. Anyway, back to France. France survives this snafu, this shift in power, by establishing a moderate government. Not quite full democracy, not quite full monarchy. The moderates have control, and it's kind of a moment of peacemaking, of nobody shoot, just nobody shoot. They become a constitutional monarchy with very strong royal authority. The king can appoint all the ministers. The king can veto any bill, but all the laws have to be written by the assembly. This causes some of the more revolutionary members of the assembly to start bad-mouthing it.
Yeah, that's gonna happen.
They start a grassroots push for a Republican government.
Hey, I can tell you right now that's a problem. It doesn't work out as well as you think.
And
they know. They would know because they're on their 6th republic currently.
Yeah.
Fun fact. I think it's their 6th.
Yep. Who knows? We could go to sleep tomorrow. They'd be on the 9th.
Oh, that's all right. America's on.
No, don't you know they're calling for like, what is it? No, they're calling for the mobilization of like all researchers to come to Europe, specifically. Trying to make specifically probably France, but you know.
They're trying to save the intellectuals from North America.
Yeah.
But
until they start offering free colleges with a free flight included.
Yeah.
Housing, you know.
Yeah. But you know, one of the key points for this republic is Louis the 16th should be put on trial. What for? We don't care. For fleeing.
We'll find a reason.
For mismanagement. For anything. But the point is, the king's not a god. Therefore, laws can apply to him.
Ooh, that definitely did not sit well with the Catholics.
Nope. Things take a turn for the worst here. This all comes to a head.
The Protestants, though, were all for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. King's Catholic. Protestants want him dead no matter what. April 1792. The French Republic, for whatever reason, decides that the best response to King Louis trying to flee to Austria is to start declaring war on every Habsburg power in Europe.
Understandable.
In this case, both Prussia and Austria. The accusations are that French nobles in exile have not all been murdered by the Prussians and the Austrians. And thus, the Prussians and Austrians must be giving their military to these nobles for the sole purpose of invading France. There's a lot of egocentrism going on here.
Yeah, I mean, also it is possible. It is something that the French aristocracy would do. I do not think they're entirely wrong with that.
Yep.
But also, you don't really have a government yet.
Yep. The second
like it just started.
Yep. The second reason is all our problems would be solved and the revolution would finally have security if every nation is the revolution. They go full Soviet Union.
Okay, they're more of a Leninist and Trotsky guys.
Yes. All
in their
nations
philosophy
must be a democracy in order for democracy to be secure.
They really start to like people wonder where Marx got his ideas. Like seriously, like it starts here.
Yep.
Yeah,
The
because Marx
result,
comes after this.
yeah,
Yeah,
Marx comes out.
he
Yeah,
was like
Marx.
alive at the tail end, I think. And then, like he grew up in Trier, which
Yeah,
saw a lot of the there.
yeah,
These ideals and Trier was a or like he was being in like that part of Germany was a very they were very much like actually the French kind of have some great ideas with these liberations.
yeah,
Why do we have a Kaiser?
yeah.
Why do we have
Yeah.
to
So
listen to a random baron?
yeah, so Karl Marx is going to be 3 when Napoleon gets it. So he
Okay.
comes in the wake of the revolution of like he grows up in a world where everyone's desperately trying to reset the clock to 1789.
Yeah, he's like, let's just go
Okay.
back a few
And,
years. Let's buy myself time.
and he decides he does not like that.
See, this isn't this like the time period where like in America we mostly focus on like the Victorian era?
Yeah,
This
this
is
would be this
pre-Victorian.
yeah, this is pre-Victorian. Karl Marx's time would be what we would call the Victorian era.
Okay,
Victoria
so
doesn't
this
ascend to
is
power until like the
Edwardian then, right?
1830s, 1840s.
And
Georgian or Edwardian?
yeah,
This would be Georgian, actually. This is King George III.
Okay, just double checking.
yeah, this is Georgian time.
God,
Yeah.
I hate how
And
much knowledge I have of that.
once again, you see right here, everything is in a British reference point.
Yeah,
Everything.
it's intentional. A lot of that is intentional. Because remember, if a lot of this came from a German standpoint, things might be a little more different.
Yeah, but yeah, we're gonna get into some of that in a later date. There's a group of people called the Jacobins. Fun name for genocidal maniac.
Oh,
Uh, in August, after this war has started and does not meet with immediate success, they kidnapped the king.
okay.
And this kidnapping kicks off a wave of violence, full Spider-Man meme of are you a revolutionary? Are you a revolutionary? No, you're a revolutionary. No, I'm pointing at you.
No, I'm Spartacus.
And yeah,
Oh boy.
several hundred people just die in Paris. This is
French are a
not
very
the
contentious
guillotining.
lot.
This is just violence. This is just the Jacobites attacking everyone.
Oh, so it's just mass mayhem. That's
Yeah,
it.
the Jacobites have decided it's prison rules, and the only way to assert dominance is to start shanking anyone who's not a Jacobite.
Yeah, this is a very strange. How did they get there?
Yeah, they they establish with the king as their hostage and thus able to sign off on all things as totally legitimate and not a knife at my throat.
Wait a minute. How could they even do that? Considering he just kind of got deposed, didn't he? That's like the whole thing
The,
going on.
no, the current government is a constitutional monarchy where the king has veto power over
Wait, so
legislation.
they're just forcing the king to veto stuff and try to make it legitimate.
So what they do is the king is kind of like a U.S. president at this point. When the what are they calling themselves at this point? The assembly uh, puts forward a law. The king can either sign off on it and it goes into law, or he can veto it, in which case it dies. The Jacobites have the king hostage, and they have him start signing things for them as laws. This is as legitimate as it sounds.
Oh, man.
Not at all. But they give themselves a fancy new name. They call themselves the National Convention. And they declare the establishment of the French Republic via these decrees. There is no monarch, there's no constitutional monarchy. There's no need for a king. The king is imprisoned. It's a pure republic. And that's when the reign of terror starts.
Yeah, that says all right.
Yeah. They decide that they're gonna kick things off in January of 1793 by killing King Louis XVI with the guillotine. Um,
I don't
his
remember
crime,
having no king.
yeah,
I
his
didn't vote for him.
his crime is treason. His attempt to go to Austria is labeled as defection, even though they weren't at war with Austria at the time.
He abandoned his throne.
That's
Yeah.
how that's the perpetual hate. Like in like the French psyche, there's just a perpetual war in their minds with the Habsburgs and Austria.
The the French Revolution here, this Reign of Terror, will demonstrate the need for the concept of you can only break a law while that law is in effect. Because the French Revolution doesn't have that. If tomorrow on Thursday in the French Revolution, they were declared that it's illegal to wear red on a Wednesday, I would be killed for recording this video on a Wednesday in this red shirt, regardless of the fact that I had done it before that was ever a law.
Yeah, but what you didn't see in the memo is that you have to wear red as an accent on your shirt, not a red shirt.
Yes, but the point is the memo doesn't exist. I wear red on Wednesday. The law is published on Thursday. On Friday, my head is rolling in a basket.
Hey, it's not my fault. You know, you should have followed the law preemptively.
It was, yeah, and
It's like how there was that question with Christianity where, wait a minute, before when Jesus died, then did that just mean everybody went to hell? Wait, that's that kind of question vibe.
yeah,
It's like, so wait a minute, if everybody broke the law prior to this, shouldn't we arrest all those people?
it's was it? I think it's like
How'd
ex
you
post
prove it?
facto,
Yeah,
where basically it's a legal concept where you cannot break a law if you did the crime before that law was made a law.
which is how a lot of probably financial schemes got away.
Yeah,
Like,
that's how Ponzi schemes got away with so much. But it's also why your basic rights are protected.
true.
Yeah, so small trade-off.
Well, you would hope.
Yeah. And
I'm really
they
bad at timing these videos.
yeah, they execute Marie Antoinette later on after King Louis. They decide that since she's an Austrian princess, she must be somehow committing master spycraft from her prison cell and telling the Austrians and Prussians everything the French are doing, which she's not privy to. And that's why the French are doing so bad in this war against the two most heavily militarized land armies on Earth.
You know, you could tell this is really written from like a lot of sources are written from a British point of view. It's because of how they describe. Because
Yep.
they're like completely dumbfounded that a peasant would do such a thing,
Yep.
let alone be organized. Like it's such a
Yeah, no.
uh
Finding French perspectives was excruciating, and
I'm
I
sure
did
they
not.
made sure they could scrub it because they were like, listen, if any of these ideas get out more than they already are, we're fucked. The only thing separating those ideals and us is a ocean, and people have boats.
Yep. Now, one of the fun things about all this killing is that it causes the convention to break apart. The war's not going well. Someone killed the king. We won't say who because clearly that's a bad idea, and having a bad idea is a murderable offense.
Oh, the real cancel culture, the original cancel culture.
Yeah, it just sounds like some cancel culture to me.
Yep. And basically the National Convention starts to break down. So the Jacobin solution to this is to once again seize control by force. They decide that the National Convention that they formed isn't revolutionary enough for them. So
Revolutionary infighting.
Yep. In June of
Tale as old as time.
1793, they take it over by force, and they institute some very stupid ideas. Number one, all forms of Christianity are now illegal. Possession of Christian artifacts and worship of Christian deities is now an executable offense.
Oh my
Oh my-
god, they went
This is the
full.
persecution even. This is the
Yep.
persecution evangelicals think they have under under when there's a Democrat and as a president.
Oh no.
Like
Yep.
this is what this sound like during like the Obama administration.
Yep. Now, this law will be applied retroactively, so anyone who's ever been seen in a church is now
Oh, so
can now be
the
killed
clergy
on a
are just
dime.
going to get executed.
Yep. This is an excuse to kill everyone.
They don't like this is
Yep.
like how this is the way of the Bolsheviks.
Yep. And yeah, this is going to be this is where things start mirroring this. I told you they go full Soviet.
Yeah, this is what. Yeah, I see. I can fully see it.
Yep.
They're like, no, they're not. They're not as radical as I am. Look how radical I am. You don't
Plus,
like. You got Catholics. I'm more radical than you. I got a problem with all Christians, and this is how I'm gonna
Yep.
fucking show.
Yep.
I'm gonna make it illegal to be in a church.
Plus, God is an authoritative figure and kind of an authoritarian one. If you read some parts of the Bible,
You can tell
And-
these people did read Voltaire, though.
yeah, and they did not want to have any sort of source of power that wasn't them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, they sound like Redditors, like the 14-year-old Redditors on r/atheist.
I mean, they probably were 14 given the average age at the time.
And given the fact that they're going to kill about 20,000 to 40,000 people in 10 months.
Yeah.
This is where the guillotining really kicks off.
You know,
God,
with,
yeah.
do you think that many executions, do you think it was limited by the amount of time that they would have to resharpen the blade?
Yeah.
Like, do you think
There-
that was the limiting factor?
No, it's not just the blade. They had to they would have to replace bolts. Because remember, this is a plate that drops, and the only thing that stops it is literally the bottom, so it just shakes. And eventually you're gonna have to replace the bolts. The wood's gonna have to be replaced at some point.
Yeah,
The blade constantly, the pulley mechanism.
So it was a
they're limited-
mechanical limitation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the fact that the French still used it until 1977, I think.
Yeah, it was 77. I did a short on it.
Yeah, it's that's dedication. That straight up became a hater behavior to be like, yeah, we're just gonna give you the guillotine, which is what makes it such an iconic symbol, is to say I constructed this poorly designed execution method when bullets exist and much faster.
Hanging would have sped things up a lot. Let's be
But
honest.
there's
This is to prove a point.
this was about presentation
Yeah.
and to send a message. This is the Joker in the hospital from
It
the
also is
Dark
almost
Knight trilogy.
It's also an
Yeah.
extra layer more.
Robespierre's the original Joker.
It's right. It's also fucked up in another layer thing, because certain religions and certain sects of Christianity, you need to have the body be whole when buried.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if Catholics still practice that, didn't they? At that time period?
I can't speak for certain on all the various funerary rituals in play.
Listen, there's probably been like 20 councils about it.
But
There's-
effectively, it was looked down upon to bury someone separately, so a lot of times they tried to keep the body whole. And to intentionally deface that and to chop it off like you're doing it
Yeah,
intentionally.
Also, the guillotine gave you this very much one at a time approach where you could parade and humiliate the victim before killing
Almost
them.
it's like a triumph of death.
Yeah, and honestly, the bar for evidence is extremely low. See, one person can't accuse another person of a crime because that
Right.
might just be, your individual bias. You're in a dispute with someone, you might just cry wolf. But if a second person says the same thing, then it has to be true and is taken as
Oh my
empirical fact.
God, they
So
just
if you and your
reset.
brother both say that your neighbor, is anti-revolutionary, then that might as well have been written in the Bible, if they still had those in France at this time, because they don't, because Christianity is illegal.
Are you telling me they basically devolved into like they just said all laws no longer apply, so basically we're gonna have to start from the fucking beginning
Yeah,
of
mob rule. Mob rule.
that guy did the thing,
Yeah, it's mob rule.
and my totally
Yep. And the
it's
man in
so fun.
charge of all this, Robespierre, who does most of these executions, eventually finds himself with at least 2 people who don't like him.
Oh
Gee,
no. Oh no.
gee.
Oh no.
And on July 28th, 1794, his head rolls.
Again, you know,
It's a very democratic
it's a
unaliving
very
device.
it happens. It happens with every group that like tries to be advantageous like this in in a society that's trying to be extremely democratic. So even if you are a radical, even within the democracy, you are still not safe.
Yeah.
Especially when you have a system that's basically just 2 people saw you do this, so we believe.
Yeah. Now, one of the fun things is Robespierre's death basically makes Napoleon. It proves that the Jacobites can be killed.
It's 2v1, dude. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. It proves the
I'm like,
Jacobites can be killed. He proves that the Jacobites are starting to fight each other. And a massive revolution kicks off against the Reign of Terror because, you've just killed tens of thousands of people in less than a year. And there's no end in sight. This revolution sees a bicameral legislature and a new constitution under what's known as the Directory, a 5-person council acting as king. It's a lovely little small council, and everyone hates it.
Of course they do. It's the French.
Yeah. The royalists want a monarchy again, not this fake
Oh
thing.
my.
Yes, there's some of them still alive, even after the 10-month purge.
Oh,
They're
don't
like,
worry.
guys, they're just like the liberals who just want something. They're just like, I just want to stop hearing about it. We'll
Also,
just go back to the old system.
Aaron, it gets worse
they're
because during the Bourbon Restoration, they end up reappointing a king after Napoleon fails.
Yeah,
Like
that's
they
right.
get Napoleon, they're like, all right, that guy was a lot worse. Let's just default back to what we had before, and we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah, and the Jacobins here, they're not all dead, and they want
never
to keep
are.
on killing.
God, it's like an entire political party made up of serial killers.
It really is.
Like these are just people who just want used to kill someone.
Yeah. Now, the only people who approve of this are what's called the Girondins. They're the moderate party. They have not been relevant since that first constitutional monarchy that got overthrown by the National Convention. And the Girondins really don't have any support. Well, except for one guy. There's this man named Napoleon Bonaparte.
Oh, of course again.
He's a respected military general, and he knows how to get things done. When the Girondins need help enforcing a legislation, here comes Napoleon with his army. When popular dissent starts to rise up against the Girondins, here's Napoleon with his army. Until eventually Napoleon's doing everything. And then he gets rid of the Girondins.
Yeah.
I mean, he cut out the middle, man. I kind of respect that.
At
but
that
also,
point, and plus he got all the fame.
Yep.
Military coups are not cool, bro. They're not cool.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. November 9th, 1799, Napoleon starts a coup and appoints himself first consul of France. This is the beginning of the Napoleonic era. It marks the end of the French Revolution. as Napoleon will in short order crown himself emperor and actually win all these wars that are being waged with the rest of Europe.
Oh, what does he say? Because like traditionally, if you are going to be ever crowned an like emperor title, the Pope has to traditionally do it.
Yeah.
And Napoleon famously takes the crown himself, and I believe the phrase is, hold on just a minute.
Yeah.
I believe it is like it's French, but
he effectively wanted to make it clear that he was crowning his own head. He was not anointed by some foreign religious figure. He was emperor by his own merit. Yeah, is I believe was the point he was trying to make. I don't know where the phrase is if you can find it.
I'm trying to find it. I'm working on it. Give me a sec. Good. Oh no. Oh no, never mind. I'm thinking of someone else. I'm thinking of a different phrase, I think.
Could be, yeah.
Oh. But it is very interesting hearing the story of Napoleon and everything that's going on. I mean, it just, you leave a nice little power vacuum, and eventually a good figurehead will follow through. And then my personal favorite thing about Napoleon is the fact that he tries to start his own hereditary lineage.
Yep. Yeah, the last Napoleonic emperor is named Napoleon III. So,
And there's like a Napoleon in like Spain or something too at one point.
Mexico, Maximilian.
Oh, that's
yeah.
right.
And
That's a weird spinoff.
actually, that's how we get the Cinco de Mayo, the Battle of Puebla.
Ah, tie it
It,
all together.
it was a bunch
Because
of
Cinco de Mayo
French
was like a few days
farmers.
ago. Right, because yeah, like the French were like trying to come in, and then of course like the whole Louisiana Purchase thing. So Napoleon was like, "No, we're done in America. Get the fuck out."
Yeah, although technically, I believe Napoleon III was the last one because Maximilian dies in 1867 and Napoleon III dies in 1870.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
Or, well, he
But yeah,
doesn't die; he
this
gets
podcast.
deposed.
But yeah, this episode's gone on for long enough, so we
So Napoleon III is the last of them. But we have concluded the French Revolution. The Napoleonic era is its own other mess.
Can I make one final tie back?
Oh yeah, go for it. Go for it.
After Napoleon assumes power, France is poor, broke, war torn, and needed a way to drum up a lot of money fairly quickly, especially because they believed the British were starting to gather power. Would you guess that he decided to sell the Louisiana Territory to the United States for $15 million for two main reasons? Mainly, it gave him cash in pocket, and secondly, the British were also encroaching on that territory, so this was yet another like final fuck you to them.
yeah, fair.
And
Kip. Yeah, go fight the Americans, you Brits.
and
But it
on
was
and on that note, we set the
everyone talks
stage.
about themselves.
And on that note, we set the stage for the War of 1812. We wrap up the American and French revolutions, mainly focusing on the French here. Thank you guys for watching. Let us know your comments down below, and we will see you in the next podcast episode.